My brothers and sisters, the Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman of that district came and called out, "Have pity on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But Jesus did not say a word in answer to her. Jesus' disciples came and asked him, "Send her away, for she keeps calling out after us." He said in reply, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But the woman came and did Jesus homage, saying, "Lord, help me." He said in reply, "It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Please, Lord, for even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters." Then Jesus said to her in reply, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And the woman's daughter was healed from that hour. The Gospel of the Lord.
If we look at literature, if we look at films, we look at some screenplays or musicals, there's usually certain themes that emerge, certain styles, certain ways of constructing these stories. And some of them are rather classic, and probably one of the classic structures of a story, if it be a movie, if it be a book, is a theme where somebody is on the outside. They're kind of always beaten down. They're left on the side. Some circumstance happens that draws them to the very center of attention, and those who were once against them are now with them because of their newfound popularity or position. It's a basic theme that many stories follow. And probably a classic example of that very story would be the story of Cinderella. We have Cinderella kind of cast off on the side, the wicked stepmother, the wicked stepdaughters, stepsisters are kind of pushing Cinderella aside because one of the wicked stepsisters is the one destined to marry Prince Charming. But Prince Charming meets Cinderella. Cinderella's definitely captivated his eye. Cinderella is the one who becomes the princess of the ball. And towards the end of the story, we see that, wicked stepmother and the stepsisters start to like Cinderella. Of course, we hope that it's sincere and not put on, but nonetheless, she becomes the very center of attention. The one who was on the outside is now the one who's the very center of the inside. We need to think about that type of a theme, that type of idea as we come to the scripture today. The first reading, the prophet warns the people on the inside, Israel, the chosen ones. Those on the inside, warns them, tells them, some on the outside, they're going to be called to the covenant too. And the prophet is warning those who are in the very core, the very center, Israel, be prepared. The covenant with God is going to be extending beyond you. Second reading, we hear Paul, the great preacher, apostle to the Gentiles. The Gentiles were on the outside. The Jews and the Gentiles hated one another. And Paul exalts the Gentiles, takes them from being on the outside to the very center, exalts them, raises them up. And we hear of God's mercy for the Gentiles. And in the gospel, we hear the same story. We hear the Canaanite woman, Syrophoenician by birth, hated by the Jews. This woman had multiple reasons not to speak to Jesus. First of all, in that time, a woman would never have gone up and began to speak to a man, let alone a rabbi. Secondly, she was an outsider, and she should not have gone up to speak to a Jew. The Jews and the Canaanites did not get along, and we hear even the term dog used, because the Jews would have considered them to be like dogs. And the woman clearly says, the dogs even get to eat the scraps that fall from the master's table. And this woman who's on the outside is now brought very much into the center and raised up as an example, a model of faith. Her persistence for the healing brought what she wanted. Think about that today, maybe in our own lives especially. Who is it that we put off on the side and maybe most need to bring into the center of our lives? I'm going to guess for all of us there is someone, if it be a group of individuals or if it be a particular individual, somebody that we cast off on the side. We want to leave them on the outside. We don't want them ever to be in the center. And although that description can probably fit many different individuals, probably the most important person that we cast off on the side is someone that we need to extend forgiveness to. Regardless of any other division we create in our society and put people on the side, probably the most important one to consider is that individual in our life who we most need to forgive. And I'm going to guess for all of us there's someone that we need to forgive. If it be a long time deep hurt, if it be something more recent, there's someone that we probably cast off into the side that we genuinely need to forgive. And why is that important this Sunday? St. John Chrysostom, I believe it was, who took the very gospel we heard, the story about this Canaanite woman, and related it to God's mercy and forgiveness. And he said, this woman symbolizes for us the genuine sinner, the true sinner. This woman, because of her persistence, reminds us of the importance when in sin to persist in forgiveness. This woman reminds us that when sinned against, our persistence to extend forgiveness. And then this woman, too, realized without doubt, without question, she was powerless. She could do nothing to effect this healing. And so, too, when genuinely in sin, we're powerless. We rely upon God's mercy and forgiveness. We rely upon one another to extend that forgiveness. This woman really symbolizes the truth of what it means to be a humble, powerless sinner in need of healing and forgiveness. This Sunday, just think perhaps, who is it most in your life that you need to go out of your way to forgive? Who is it most in your life that you need to go out of your way and ask for forgiveness? One of my friends, he's a priest in another diocese, so I can tell you anything I want about him. And Timothy, when he graduated from college, did not enter the seminary right away. He took a job as a buyer for Saks Fifth Avenue and moved to Manhattan. And after a number of years of work, he had to return home, as his mother had been battling and now diagnosed in the end stages of cancer. And he was one of 6 children, if I remember correctly, a good Irish Catholic family. And all of the kids came home to take care of their mom. And they developed a well-planned out system of who was on what shift. And one particular day, as Timothy tells the story, Tim was on all through the night. It was his shift, and his youngest brother, who kind of thought that the world revolved around him. He thought that his mother was dying, forgot that he had 5 brothers and sisters who also was in the same boat, He was definitely suffering from an "oh, woe is me" complex, being the youngest in that situation. His youngest brother came to relieve him, and when he arrived, Timothy said, everything's done, Mom is fine, just watch her. There's one thing for you to do. He gave him one job to do for the day. And he got in his car and drove away and returned around supper time. As Timothy tells the story, when he returned around supper time, he quickly learned that the one job that was given to the youngest brother was not completed. And Timothy grew very angry, and he yelled at his brother. And his brother immediately came to him and apologized, but Timothy would not hear of it nor even speak to him. After supper, again, his brother came to him and apologized, and Timothy would not speak to him or accept that apology. Later on in the evening, they were both outside, and his brother was leaving for the evening and leaned over his car and said, bro, I love you. I'm very sorry. And Timothy would not speak to him nor forgive him. He drove off. Somewhere around 5 in the morning, the doorbell rang. It was the state troopers who came to inform the family that his brother had been tragically killed in a car accident that night. The task that wasn't accomplished, the bills needed to be put into the mail. Simple task. But for the rest of his life now, he lives remembering that he couldn't forgive such of a simple infraction. For all of us, there's probably someone we need to bring back into the circle of our life, to the center, somebody we've kept at a distance. And maybe that somebody is ourselves, that we need the humility to ask forgiveness rather than extend it. This Sunday, maybe think, who is it that we keep on the outside and genuinely, not like wicked stepmother or the stepsisters, but genuinely go out of our way and bring them to the center of our life. The very heart, the very core, the very center, the message of our faith is always mercy and forgiveness. Be effective in using that today.